people played.
In the medieval version of stickball, players would throw a fist-sized rag-stuffed ball into the air and then hit it with a stick. Handball, or fives, a forerunner of tennis, was played by batting a ball with bare hands. A game called tennis, played with rackets, was first mentioned in English literature in about 1400 AD. Other ball games included hurling, which was a forerunner of field hockey, and football, a game with rules similar to the modern game of soccer. Games were more strenuous and competitive. Among these were stone tossing, wrestling, fencing, and archery. These games were real tests of strength and skill. In addition, practice in fencing and archery was good preparation for battle. Since citizens of most medieval towns and villages served in militias, it was important for men to know how to handle the weapons of the day. By the 1400s, most European cities had schools of fencing that taught courses and awarded diplomas such as the Master of the Long Sword. In archery, medieval sportsmen practiced their skill at shooting arrows from longbows and crossbows. Parts of the bow include the shelf, located here, which is where you knock the arrow so that you may release it, and the sight window so that you may see your target, and the handle where you hold the bow, and of course the string, which, depending on whether it's loose or tight, it depends on how fast the arrow may go. This is the upper limb, and this is the lower limb. The space between the handle and the string is called the string height. And this is the handle riser. Annual shooting contests were held in many towns and cities, during which the most skilled shooters would take aim at man-sized targets, or fake animals. The best marksman was declared king of the shooters for the year, and was exempted from paying taxes during his reign. The worst shot was awarded a pig as a consolation prize. The sitting games now of the Middle Ages consisted of various card games, dice games, and board games. Cards were introduced into Europe from either China or India in the late 1300s. Among the earliest European card games was a war game. Card games soon became so popular that a law was passed prohibiting workers from playing them on work days. The earliest known signs used on cards were swords, cups, or chalices, coins, and staves. These signs represented the four classes of medieval society: nobles, clergy, merchants, and peasants. The organization of a medieval suit of cards with a king, a knight, which later became the queen, a squire, which also later became the jack, and the faceless foot soldiers, which became the most commonly used cards, the numerals, corresponding to different organizations. Another very famous board game in the world would be chess. This game was a resemblance of what went on in the Middle Ages: many wars. This was a game of strategy. This game consisted of pieces called a rook, a knight, a bishop, a queen, and a king, and all the pawns, or the peasants and servants of the higher authorities. The point of the game is to get the king in check, the opposing king in check, and, in other words, to defeat the castle and capture it. The most spectacular sporting event of the Middle Ages was the tournament. During the period of the Roman imperial armies used tournaments as military exercises to prepare for war. In the Middle Ages, the tournaments became a formalized sporting event with specific rules of combat and conduct. It was also limited to knights. Developed first in France in the 1000s, the medieval tournament gradually spread to other parts of Europe. The medieval tournament was composed of several classes of events. The most popular of these was the joust. In this test of power and skill, two armored knights on horseback would charge at each other along wooden barriers called lists. The object was to strike the oncoming riders with a blunted lance and unhorse him. If both knights remained on the saddle, an extra point was awarded to the one who had shattered his lance. The broken lance proved that the knight had hit his opponent squarely and with the greatest possible force. Other tournament events included the melee, the baston event, and the foot combat event. The melee involved groups of knights fighting on horseback. Tournaments with pageants became a popular annual attraction in some wealthy cities. At some county fairs and local festivals, pretend tournaments provided humorous entertainment for all people. Villagers would wear tubs, buckets, or baskets instead of armor and engage in boisterous jousts. As we conclude this segment, we have seen that entertainment in the Middle Ages was simple and often mimicked everyday life, such as hunting and war. We also saw many of the games developed into modern games that we have today. So in conclusion, I'm Water Concrete. And that's the way it was in the Middle Ages. As your host for today. And stop because I just